Hi. Hi, hello and welcome. Did I press record button? That is a good question. Slide like this. Oh, yes, I can slide into the video. No. Hi, hello and welcome. It's about 11 AM, which means the last meal's here apparently. You know, why not eat 2 slices of cheese pizza that is like overflowing and drink copious amounts of caffeine at 11 AM. It's always a good time to dive away. If you're new to this channel, new to this segment, this is last meals. This is what I do with my Fridays. I eat the death row's inmate last meal while I tell you a story about the person. Because why not? And today on the menu we have Gary Heidnik. I'm excited about the food and about this combo. I never had coffee with pizza. I'm not excited about the guy I'm telling you today. Well, I covered him on the podcast. It's pretty disturbing. This will definitely be like a timestamp video where I have like a timestamp where you skip through the most gruesome parts of the video, so that's promising, I guess. Stick around. One small disclaimer before I go into this video. Okay, weird story. But I'm not gonna brand shame, but I was eating this brand of like hard salted crisps, right? And the proof that I never learn, I knocked one of my fillings out like a few weeks ago, and then the other day I was eating the thing again, so I knocked another filling out. So it's kind of hard for me to chew hard foods, but I'm here. This is my choice. It doesn't make any sense, I understand. Just, you know, telling you, if like you see me struggling to chew food, I should pretty much be condemned to baby foods. So drop your suggestions in the comments, innit? Like, what death row inmate had baby foods? Porridge is great. Yeah, let's just have porridge for the next like 10 Fridays until the dentist's open. Let's dive into this motherfucking case and into this food. Just to explain, the last meal, so it's 2 slices of cheese pizza and then 2 cups of just black coffee. So let's dive in, right? Positively disgusting, no flavor, love it. What can we say about Gary Heidnik? Well, first of all, just judging by his name, you kind of know he was born in the 40s, 1943 to be precise. What can we tell about him, about his last meal? As mentioned, I think I mentioned it last time. Maybe not, maybe this is new information for you. Jesus, this already kicked in. So, death row inmates, well, usually for their last meal, they kind of choose stuff they're familiar with, it reminds them of their good days, and it is usually junk food in most of the cases. It's great, I'm totally not gonna balloon during this series. Okay. So, Gary's childhood, as I mentioned, taking the little cheeses. You can probably cut this into slices, but then it will look disgusting. Anyways, he was born in 43. Look at the cheese. Okay. Born in 43, and as you could guess, because we're talking about a serial killer here, he didn't have the best childhood that a child can possibly have. He had something that's called Macdonald triad. So Macdonald triad is kind of like a common, consistent triad of things that kids do. In certain cases is a predisposition for a serial killer, okay? It doesn't mean like if you did all 3 of these things you're gonna be a serial killer. Some of them are more fucked up than the others, okay? So it's bedwetting, it's setting arsons, and it's torturing animals. So yeah, you know, if you have one of those, okay. If you have all 3 of those, you need therapy, bro. Of course his parents didn't send him to therapy. This was what, 40s, late 40s and then early 50s, when Gary was betting, when Gary was betting, what the fuck? When Gary was wetting his bed. So what his dad did, he would of course publicly shame him for it. So every time Gary would wet a bed, he would display those wet peed-on sheets for the whole neighborhood to see. So he would just like hang them outside. Great parenting skills. Also, he used to hang Gary himself by his legs as well. Again, great stuff. There's also one other event from his childhood which sort of marks a lot of other serial killers, and that is that Gary also fell off his tree, which caused him to have a slightly weirdly shaped head. Nothing extreme when you look at Gary's pictures, but like obviously kids in school, you know, took the wheel, they were bullying him straight away. I mean, if he had hit his head during this time, people would have probably called him Stewie from Family Guy. But you know, during that time, he was just a football head. So on top of all of this, his parents were both alcoholics. So the first chance he got to run out from their family and just escape, he did. And he went to military academy. Yet another pattern. It's growing on me. I mean, I usually do Coke and pizza, so caffeine, right? Just hot and weird. It's great. Okay, military academy. When they tested him at military academy, he had like super high IQ, so between 130 and 140. So the guy was technically a genius, even though he fell off on his head, etc. Of course, even though he excelled with structure, he even like served in Germany, something was always off about him, so they retired him with honorable pension, because when they kept doing these tests in the military, they also diagnosed him with psychoid personality disorders. They were like, it's great, you served your time, great, now move on with your life. And we all know where this is going. Did you see that disgusting flower? Who the fuck would do like a flower on the couch? I just don't understand. It looks like it was a child, it was done by a child, like otherwise who else in the right sense of mind? Gary Heidnik, that's cool. Just kidding. Okay, continuing, moving the fuck on. Why is this so unstable? Like his mental state. Stop it. Okay, after he was discharged from military, after his military discharge, he worked for a mental institution where he was fired for rude behavior. He was already like showing some anger management issues and some cuckoo bits on his head. Weirdly enough, I mean, not weirdly enough considering this was 50s and 60s, but still, weirdly enough, because nobody kept records during this time, he actually himself was hospitalized 22 times. And people would just be like, yeah, cool, you're cleared, you're cured, you know, go off. So he would just chill in the hospital for a month, for like a few months, and then just check himself out like it was a fucking hostel. But yeah, that was totally not red flags for anybody else. I'm just saying that this could have definitely been prevented. But then, what story would I be telling you today? Somebody else's. Cool. One of many triggers comes along in 1970 when his mom, who has been battling with cancer, dies by committing suicide by drinking mercury chloride. I think that's it. Basically just viciously fucking dying while committing a painful suicide. So this just adds like a level of messed up spice into the already spiced up soup, right? No contention. You get what I mean, because now it's like nobody wants him. He has felt unwanted his whole childhood, and now it's like even his mom doesn't want to stay living, basically. Like his mom's death, I think, was genuinely like the biggest trigger for him to like convert to the life of just absolute crime. Because after his mom died, he had a vision from God, where God spoke to himself. Of course, you know, this leads to some culty business. And God told him to open up a church. Beautiful. Just so greasy to see somebody. So he opens up a church, calls it United Church of Ministers of God. I think the name, not gonna lie. This is the only part in this story where I was like, okay, Gary, not the worst name ever. Of course, he wasn't actually interested into being this bishop. He was representing himself to be into anything this church, like any profits that would come through this church would go to him supporting himself. Copious amounts of playboys. Cadillacs, Rolls Royce, just bought his own house, lavish lifestyle, guy's living it up. Still looks like Stewie Griffin, but cool, it's working, he's working his way up. If this is where it stopped, I would be like, okay, cool, you know, crimes, fraud, cool, 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 it's fine, it's fine, white collar, amazing. But he turns a tad bit disturbing. Remember how I said he used to be in mental institutions about 22 times? Well, he made friends there. And by friends I mean girlfriends, of IQ of about like 40 to 50, which means that they couldn't think for themselves. So Gary used to think for them, so Gary used to impregnate these girls and have children with mentally disabled girls. Here we have yet another time when the police could have prevented everything happened, because this just again escalates. So he moves in with his girlfriend with the IQ of 48. Cool. Okay, cool. It's fine. Maybe it's a love relationship. No. He then takes the girlfriend's sister out of a mental institution, keeps her in their flat, and just tortures her for days. Luckily she was found and he was charged, but he only spent 3 years in a mental institution for this. And then he was out again on the streets. Now again, somehow, even though he just looks like a fucking toad, like I don't know what to describe this. Like he's not the fucking Ted Bundy, even though I don't find Ted Bundy attractive. He's not young Jeffrey Dahmer. Young Jeffrey Dahmer had a hots, and then you realize what he did and you're like, A controversial opinion, yes, controversial take on here on Last Meals. But yeah, he was not young Jeffrey Dahmer, he didn't have the looks, but yet again he gets out after 3 years, and he again marries another girl. Luckily this girl actually managed to move back to Philippines after catching him in bed with 3 women, but also witnessing him basically just torture and abuse other women while being married to her. So luckily she manages to skedaddle out of the situation. And now we are in 1986, where all of what he has been doing, you know, all of his jobs, all of his aspirations, everything he's been doing to the mentally challenged, incapacitated women, all of the torture, finally crystallizes something in his head, and he realizes his real calling is not being a bishop in this church, it is to enslave black women in a dungeon and just has full reign over them. I found in different sources, because obviously he dated Asian women, he wasn't like, during his life he wasn't as prevalently into black women for you to be like, oh yeah, that's a clear-cut choice somehow in his head. I read in a couple of sources that he was either obsessed with black women because his mom remarried to 2 black men after being married to his white dad, or because his dad was a racist. So you pick your choice here. It might not be any of those, it might just be like some fixation that he had because he was crazy, batshit crazy. Right. Oh. So as you remember, through this church he amassed like a huge house, Rolls Royce, like all of these fancy cars. This house obviously had a basement, so he already had part of that plan fixed for him, his head. So one night in November 1986, he goes out and looks for a sex worker, because he was smart, he knew that those will be the women, the other that nobody looks for. Again, just tells you a lot about his mental state, because even then, as well as when he targeted women with low IQ, he knew who would be the less that, he knew who would be the women that nobody cared about. So he finds a sex worker, Josefina Rivera. She goes with him into his car, and then he's like, okay, cool, before we get down to business, okay, that term, that's a term they use, let's just stop by my house, I need to pick up something. So they stop by her house, and I think like because of the grandiosity of it, because it just looked like a normal neighborhood, she sees the Rolls Royce, she's like, okay, yeah, it's just a normal fucking guy. He's like, yeah, can you just like come in, you know, while I pick this up? And immediately as she's in, he handcuffs her and he brings her down to the basement, which we already know is nowhere good. But in this basement, he dug a pit in the middle of it. I might be able to put some pictures in this video, but a lot of them are just truly disturbing, so you can look them up. It's just the tiniest fucking contraption, like tiniest basement, and then there's just a pit basically in the soil. He puts Josefina into this pit and just like covers it up, so she's technically buried alive in the fucking bitching cold. Then he comes back. Once he gets her out of the pit, he's like deepening. I'm an immigrant, forgive me for this, like what the fuck, you expected a lot from me. He's deepening this hole in front of her, and of course at this point she's just like fucking fearful, she doesn't know what to do, like herself. So not just that, but as he is deepening that hole, he tells her his plan is to kidnap 10 women and have this family with them. So to impregnate every single one of them, 10 women, and then for them to somehow live in this smallest fucking basement with a pit. Genius. Now, of course, he was serious about this, so in December 1986, he kidnaps 2 other women, Sandra Lindsay and Lisa Thomas. This pizza is just too cheesy and greasy, I fucking hate it. Anyways, what would your last meal be? Drop it down in the comments and then I can cover you one day, huh? Okay, cool, yes, I'm definitely escaping the reality of the next couple of lines. Because, so he brings Sandra and Lisa into the basement. Now there's 3 women. The pit in the middle of the room is obviously the punishment area or the inauguration area, whatever you want to call it, because he immediately would throw a girl there. The one sick ritual that he would do with all of these women is that he would beat them with like a metal pole himself, or that he would put one of them to beat the others. So he played mind tricks with these women straight away, because he knew like how to make them like submissive to him. Also, if he was to go out of the house, he would leave one person in charge, and then if they weren't beaten to his standard, however disturbing that thing is, then he would come home and punish them all. Great parenting skills, we have made a great father. Other manipulation techniques was also for the girls to report on something. So obviously the girl who is in charge needs to report, for the other 2 doing something as well to be rewarded by usually food, to be honest. But also, like, what can they do that's so bad within, probably try to escape or like scream through the window, and he told them not to do that, nobody will hear them. Another thing that I don't think I mentioned, all of these girls, when they were down there, they were naked. So, obviously they would stick to each other for warmth, so they wanted to be close to each other and to actually, well, not report or not do anything. So, Jacqueline, the first woman that he kidnapped, was usually the one who had like the most common sense, because she kind of knew him from the very beginning, so she knew what he was capable of. So if somebody would try to scream, she would try to like discourage them from doing that. She would try to, you know, like let them all stick together and be together for each other there. Also, when he would beat them or when he would leave the house, he would put the radio on. So obviously so that the neighbors don't hear, but also just for them, for the sheer terror, because nobody can just hear your screams. Another form of punishment as well was to hang them with like a handcuff by only one arm to one of the poles, so you're just hanging from the pole from the ceiling and you're just freezing yourself there. Now, Sandy or Sandra, the second girl that he kidnapped, was actually mentally challenged. So Jacqueline actually said in the interviews that she gave after that basically Sandra never understood that she was just treated like a sex slave. So Gary made her write up a card addressed to her mother, basically being like, yep, I'm safe, don't come looking for me, and then he posted it from a different state. Now in January, so this has already been 2 months, in January, within like the span of days, he kidnaps Deborah Dudley and Jacqueline Atkins. Of course, as he has like 5 women in there, like it's becoming a bit harder for him to control all of them. And some of them are feistier than others, like Sandra or Sandy was actually really feisty and really misbehaving. He would of course like have sex with all of them or ask them to have sex with each other and then just observe while they had to do it for him. There's also this event where he brought them all upstairs to watch TV, and on TV they were showing this commercial for dog food, and somebody commented like, oh, that looks nice enough to eat, and Gary went ballistic. He was enraged because in his mind he was treating them so well. Speak to his mindset, but he was treating them so well and he was feeding them junk food and everything, so of course in his mind these girls were living in a fucking Hilton, so from then on he was feeding them dog food. Given up on this pizza, by the way, by now, if you can see. So now with these women, it's harder for him to control them. Some of them are getting feistier than the others, Sandra in particular, and On one such occasion where he punished her by hanging her from the pole, well, he left her there for a longest time, and the girls couldn't actually keep her warm, couldn't do anything, because they knew that then they would get punished, so she dies. And he just comes into the basement, he takes her body off that pole and brings her upstairs. And the girls are screaming, they're just like, what the hell is he going to do with her? She's clearly dead. Like, which one of us is next? I'm going to put a timestamp on this video, so if you don't want to listen to the most gruesome part, because Gary Heidnik just escalates from here on, just skip to that part. And then, yeah, join me then, okay? So, Sandra's dead, and she is upstairs, and the other girls now are freaking out, but also Gary is becoming more and more paranoid by the fucking day. Because he thinks now, every time he's outside of the house, that they're plotting the escape, and that they're going to go, and like, he's gonna get discovered. This is also when because he's so fucking disturbed in his head, he actually chopped Sandra's body up and cooked it, and then served some of it with the dog food that the girls are now eating downstairs. This obviously caused a shit ton of smell, because the corpses smell, as we know. So the neighbors actually called the police, but because apparently he is the most charismatic guy around this block, he manages to convince the police that it's just meat, you know, he's just preparing a roast. The difference in smell? Nope, nobody. And the police is just at the door, it's like, oh cool, it's fine, Gary, you know, just like get rid of that fucking roast smell at some point, shouldn't, like, won't you? Meanwhile, in the basement, Deborah has become the feisty one, and she just hates it, she's just like rebelling. So on one occasion, Gary brings her upstairs, and he shows her, well, the stove where he is cooking Sandra's body, and then he shows her the freezer where Sandra's head is stored. And she just freaks out, and she goes into the basement. She doesn't even tell the girls, she's just shook for days. And then like, at some point Jacqueline asks her like, yeah, can you just please tell us? And yeah, she tells them what's awaiting them. Ask people to skip is because of this next part, because it makes me have goosebumps every single goddamn time. So because he's paranoid of the girls hearing when he leaves, what he does is he goes downstairs, wraps their heads in duct tapes, and then puts a screwdriver into their ears so that like their hearing is disabled, so that they can't hear him once he leaves the house. And we're back, we are back with the normal parts of this fucking story. Well, not normal, but you know. Finally, his paranoia and everything escalates to the point that all of these punishments that they're enduring are not enough. So, on one occasion when Deborah is again being fiery, feisty, just trying to normalize the situation for herself, well, the situation that she has now found herself in, what he does now, this pit that I mentioned from the beginning of the video, is kind of like a torture chamber. I don't know what else to describe it as, because what he does in it is, once he puts a girl in there, he has water in that pit now, and then because they are in metal shackles, he would run the current, the electric current as well. So on one such occasion, Deborah dies as well. Are you that kind of person that is just like, once you can't stand food, you can't stand even looking at it, and you're just like dropping it out of the shot? I am that kind of person. Because she dies, he actually makes all of the other girls sign the paper. Well, in his mind, this is a contract that they signed, saying that they have all assisted in her murder. Because now he thinks like, nobody's going to escape now that they have all signed this, they're all going to be accomplices. Now, because obviously in his head he needs 10 women, he's kind of doing the subtraction of them, and he has been proactively killing them. He wants to kidnap more victims. So he goes out on March 23rd, 1987 and kidnaps Agnes Adams. Luckily for Agnes, this day is when she will get rescued as well as the other girls, because this is the end of the reign for Gary Heidnik. So let's just speed that back up for a second to explain what has been happening during this time as well. So remember Josefina, the first woman that he has kidnapped? Well, during these 4 months, he has established, well, she was always a special one in his eyes. He has kind of established like a relationship with her. She would be the one who he would spare, you know, of the worst torture that he would put other girls for. And she played it right. She was always like really sane in her mind, and she knew how to play this right and what to do to actually get liberated one day. So, you know, she would become his favorite. Eventually, she would be the one who would start going out with him to, you know, bring other women, because it's safer if it's like a guy and a girl in a car, you know. If you take a ride from somebody, or even if it is a sex worker, it's like, okay, cool, this is safe, it's a couple. So on the day that they kidnap Agnes, she actually asks Gary for a favor. She's like, it's cool, look, like, I'm loyal, I just need a couple of minutes to go and call my family, okay? So you just park up the car here, and you know, I'm just gonna be back in a few, cool. And he somehow lets her go. So she immediately, from like this gas station, she runs, she does the fucking Forrest Gump, runs to her apartment, where her boyfriend is, just like, you know, been chilling. It's like, oh, you've been gone for 4 months. And she's like, yeah, bitch. Like, the fuck, why are you not looking for me? Call 911 straight away, and she explains to 911 what has happened. Nobody believes her, the boyfriend doesn't believe her. Red flag, okay? If the boyfriend doesn't believe you've been kidnapped when you've been missing for 4 months, and when you show him like your shackles and where the electric current hit you, maybe not the boyfriend for you, Ali. No. So luckily the police believes her because she has clear evidence on her fucking body. And because she has been out with Gary, taking like other women hostage, and like she's just been roaming the streets, she knew exactly where he lived. So she leads the police directly to the basement. Gary Heidnik is arrested and the girls are liberated. Now we go to trial. I bet whatever you thought his defense is going to be, you would not think of this. His defense is that when the house was sold to him, the girls were already in the basement. Smart. Just awkward, the most awkward real estate agent conversation that you would have on that day. It's like, oh, and here is the basement with a pit, with electric current running. So he maintained innocence throughout this whole trial, and then his defense lawyer said, well, look what he just said, he's clearly insane. He's unaware of what he's been doing this whole time. But the judge and the jury were like, no, this is messed up, like truly the most messed up story we have fucking heard for decades. So now you get a death penalty. He actually had to wait 11 years in prison before his execution in 1999, where this is what he chose for his last meal. I'm sorry that I can't finish this pizza, it's just gross. I'm so sorry, let's just move this out of shot completely. He's actually fought for him for the death penalty to be off the table until the very last minute, but you know, if it didn't work for 11 years, it won't work the last minute. Sorry about that. Also, no, it won't work. I have mixed feelings about death penalty. I'll probably talk about it one day. Don't think it's the way forward, but hey, I'm not the fucking defense attorney or the person making these laws happen. So on that day he got the very last visit from his daughter, and at 5:40 p.m. he had this delicious meal, which is great, having coffee in the afternoon, amazing. This is why I'm doing this in the morning. Makes no sense to eat pizza at 11 a.m. but also makes no sense to have that last meal then. What am I on about? This caffeine, kick the fuck in. At 10:18 p.m. he enters the room where he is to receive his lethal injection. I think he was pronounced dead at like 10:29 p.m, something along those lines. His death was witnessed by 6 news media people and by 10 random citizens. He was actually, fun fact, he was actually the 3rd person to be executed in the state of Pennsylvania since 1962, and his death was like the exception for that state in terms of like death row inmates. So there were only like 3 people executed since 1962, and he was the last person to be so in the state of Pennsylvania. The only bit of information I could find on the first victim, Josefina, is that she's actually finally living her best life in Atlantic City. So she moved by the sea. It has obviously taken her years, and it's still a struggle for her mental health to surpass what she has lived through. And she has said that for years she would have to sleep with the lights on, just because, again, of the darkness of everything that was happening within that basement. Yeah, she is a grandma of 6 kids now, and she is based in Atlantic City. As for Gary, a bit of random facts that don't fit anywhere. He spent his last day listening to country music, whatever country music was in 1999. Aren't you proud, country singers? this coffee. Coffee as a last meal is fucking dangerous, okay, for this channel, particularly for this channel. Also, if this story, if this plot line sounds familiar to somebody, kind of like a movie plot, it's because the Silence of the Lambs and the Buffalo Bill was based on this story. So Gary Heidnik lives on in legends, and also within one song by this metal band called Macabre. I actually listened to this song when I researched for the podcast. If metal is your thing, this will be your thing, but if not, definitely not. I think it's called Morbid Minister, the song, so check that out. Or don't. I don't rule your life. You actually quite honestly rule mine, because this was disgusting. So how about you drop some comments with some delicious meals that are feasible for my teeth. So there's people that didn't have last meals at all. Maybe you know an interesting one of that sort, and then I can do that for about 10 weeks from now on. But yeah, this is where I'm at every Friday, eating shit for you and not finishing it, apparently. So any interesting last meals that kind of have an interesting story to them as well, and maybe not a time step kind of story where you can listen throughout the whole part without screaming onto your fucking YouTube channel, yeah, drop them down below. If you like this last meal segment though, let me know by liking the video, because otherwise, why am I doing them if I could be doing something else? You get what I mean? Also let me know by subscribing, because then I immediately pop up in your feed and every Friday you're like, that's it, what is this bitch eating now? It's totally not the most intense fucking content, but yeah, I have nothing else to tell you and nothing else to say, so I guess this is goodbye. This is getting emotional. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, yeah, so I think I'm gonna leave. I think I'm gonna leave you. Yep, and no more caffeine for me today. I think so. I think so too. I think we all agree. This has been guess like, what the fuck? I think we all agree. So this is goodbye. Bye guys. Bye.